Joe Rogan sat down for a surprise podcast with Elon Musk that was released today, where the pair attacked Kamala Harris and the Democrats just a day out from the US presidential election. And in another shock, Joe Rogan, who has always maintained his bipartisanship publicly, came out to endorse Donald Trump with a post on X. He said, "Elon Musk makes what I think is the most compelling case for Trump you'll hear, and I agree with him every step of the way. For the record, yes, that's an endorsement of Trump. Enjoy the podcast." Donald Trump announced the endorsement during a rally to the cheers of crowds.
And it just came over the wires that Joe Rogan just endorsed me. Is that right? Thank you, Joe. That's so nice. And he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that stuff. And he tends to be a little bit more liberal than some of the people in this room. No, I had a lot of fun, and he was amazing. And it was a 3-hour interview. In fact, I was 2 hours late for a rally that we had. I had explained that a little bit, and it was cold out that night. We flew, but we had to make it. We were more than 2 hours late. And they understood. I said, I just was interviewed by a very interesting guy, and he just kept going on. They called it a long form, and it could have gone a lot longer, but he was great. And he's not a person that does endorsements, but he did an endorsement. So I just want to thank Joe Rogan. That's fantastic.
Commentators on X celebrated the news, with this commentator saying, "This is huge, let's go." And Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene said, "Let's save America." The endorsement comes after both Donald Trump and JD Vance appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast, whilst Kamala Harris did not go on the podcast.
You could look at this and you say, oh, you're being a diva. But she had an opportunity to come here when she was in Texas, and I literally gave them an open invitation. I said, anytime. I said, if she's done at 10 o'clock, we'll come back here at 10 o'clock. I go, I'll do it at 9 in the morning. I'll do it at 10 p.m. I'll do it at midnight.
I think this idea that you're being a diva is silly, because you're offering her the opportunity to do exactly what the other candidate did, right?
Well, she actually reached out when she found out that he was coming on. So their camp reached out to me. So I said, great, I would love to talk to her. But it was very difficult to tie it down, and they wanted to travel. And see, the thing is, like, you can't, if I go somewhere, then there's going to be other people in the room. And they want to control a lot of things, I'm sure, according to the Brett Breyer interview on Fox. Like, people were waving him off. That's a distraction. People in the room, like, my whole goal with her and with him is just talk. Just have a conversation like a human being. You find out things about people. You get a sense of them, at least, a real sense.
JD Vance doubled down on this, taking a brutal swipe at the Democratic candidate's inability to perform long interviews.
We're thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be in Pennsylvania. We actually recorded an episode of Joe Rogan this morning, so we started out in Austin, Texas. And we're closing out.
How long was it, JD? How long were you in Rogan?
Almost 4 hours. Almost 4
go.
hours. So I've officially done more interview time than Kamala Harris has the entire campaign just today. So
Sky News host James McPherson agreed, saying a long-form interview would expose Kamala Harris's incompetence.
He's tried to make it happen. He's made the offer, and they've said no. It will only happen on her conditions. Well, why was it that Trump was unafraid to go to his studio, his territory, and sit down and talk for 3 hours, but Kamala Harris won't? I wonder why. Maybe because she couldn't fill in 3 hours of interview, particularly knowing the way that Joe Rogan conducts his interviews. He doesn't go in there and let anyone get away with anything. It's a very conversational style of interview, right? And even more so than a formal, sit-down, hard-hitting interview, I think that is a space in which she would really struggle, unless she's on friendly territory like that Call Her Daddy podcast that she did. Because when you're asked to genuinely be you, and you're trying to sell policies that you don't necessarily agree with, people see through it right away. She knows the danger that there would be in going and doing that podcast, because she couldn't sit there for 3 hours and talk, about all and sundry like Donald Trump could, because she doesn't have a clue about all and sundry.
And that's the problem. It's less of an interview and more of a conversation. And most politicians are really good with talking points. Well, Kamala Harris is a talking point machine. That's all she does. I was raised in a middle-class family, and a 3-hour conversation is going to expose her, because while Trump can explain himself, Kamala Harris is completely unable to explain herself. But the other interesting part about this, Liz, is that Kamala Harris really needs Joe Rogan right now.
Yeah.
But Joe Rogan does not need her at all. Yeah, Joe Rogan's podcast will continue successfully well after November, but Kamala Harris may not, which is probably why politicians right around the world are so desperate to regulate online podcasts, blogs, social media, because they no longer control the narrative.
Elon Musk has been a crucial part of Donald Trump's campaign, often speaking at his rallies and urging people to vote for him on X. And today was no different, with Elon Musk staging another attack against Kamala Harris and the Democrats.
They're doing all the things that they accuse Trump of doing.
Yeah. Openly. Yeah.
I mean, the sheer number of hoaxes that the Democratic Party is pushing over and over again. And it's like, look, I understand like politicians are going to, exaggerate. They're going to misspeak, and they'll tell occasional, untruths, whatever. That's how it is in politics. But when you have deliberate, concerted, repeated pushing of hoaxes, you're like, wait a second, like, come on, man, this is too far.
And you're supposed to be the good guys.
You're supposed to, and you claim to be the good guys? I'm like, exactly.
You're supposed to be the progressives.
Yes, the Dems are like, oh, we're the good guys. We're the honest people. No, hang on. You can't claim to be the good guys. You can't claim to be the honest people if you're deliberately pushing hoaxes that have been debunked thoroughly.
Musk then went on to make the shocking claim that if Trump loses this election, X will be shut down.
If Kamala wins, we'll see that boycott get stronger. And they'll friggin' shut down. There's no way that the sort of Kamala puppet regime would allow X to exist.
You really think that they'll be able to shut it down, though? Is there a pathway to that?
Yes.
The added pressure by Trump and Musk comes as Kamala Harris is reportedly struggling to secure victory, according to some polls.
But first to the US election. We're just days away from this historic election, and the result matters here in Australia, arguably just as much as who our own Prime Minister is. American leadership is critical to the inflation fight and cost of living, to national security, support for Israel, dealing with the threat of China and AUKUS. We don't have a vote, but it matters. And here's how the polls are looking. Trump is ahead in all but 2 of the battleground states, according to Real Clear polling. Trump's ahead in Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia, while Kamala is ahead in Wisconsin and Michigan. The New York Times reports that never before in modern presidential campaigns have so many states been so tight this close to election day. And now that Trump appears to be edging ahead in the polls, the campaign is getting uglier. The New York Times reports top Democratic strategists are increasingly hopeful that the campaign's attempts to cast former President Donald J. Trump as a fascist will carry Ms. Harris to a narrow triumph. So this is a very